Hello and welcome to another edition of Six String Corner, where today I'm going to be talking to you about Paul Gilbert's recent album, Vibrato. I think this is a great album. Obviously it's styled around the theme vibrato, which Paul is fantastic at. Every track on there has got an element of that in there. Really showcasing his skills and his ability and his vibrato technique and his variations on the technique. Just using a common analogy, most people are fairly familiar with B.B. King's particular style, which was very unique to him, but everybody's tried to get a little take of their own on that. All the way down to probably Paul himself, and that classic sort of wail from 70s and 80s rock, which has influenced pretty much everybody since then. This album has got 3 live tracks on it at the end. One of them is a cover version of one of Paul's favourite songs, Go Down, by AC/DC. Which is a great track from AC/DC's early vocabulary when Bon Scott was still with the band. I like that song quite a lot as well. And the thing I like about Paul's playing is not only is he fantastically technically proficient, the guy understands music theory and technique to a level that most people would be quite happy to get just a fraction of, and it's rare in the guitar community or guitar players to achieve that level of theory and technique, because I'm going to use a little sort of pinching idea or a way of explaining it that Alex Hutchins recently explained to me when I had a masterclass with him. He's a great player, and he said, that the thing with guitar is that to understand its theory is very complex, because it's not like other wind instruments or piano, for example, where they have a scale in them and it goes in an order because that's the way the valves and the keys are laid out. That's it. That's what you can do. Those are your variations. Obviously, you can put a lot into that with your hands and your breath. But ultimately, in choosing the notes, you are structured a lot more rigidly than string instruments. And string instruments, usually 4 or 6 strings, and that multiplies those variations more than you would get on a wind instrument. And so, for guitarists, it's harder, or it seems more challenging to develop your theory and really understand what you can do with the instrument. Alex is a great player himself. Hasn't quite got anything original out yet, but when he does, I will review it. It will be here. Great guy. But Paul's album. The other thing I love about Paul's albums are he's got all of that element of feel. He's got all of that technique. He's got his wonderful vibrato, which he's obviously showcasing in this album. But he kind of likes to take you on a journey. And I talked to a couple of friends of mine who met Paul last year, and they said that one of the things that Paul said is he could stand there and he could play an amazing piece of shred, just an absolute fantastic lick, or legato, or anything like very technical skill, and everybody can stand and go, wow, yeah, that's impressive. And then he launched into, I think they said it was a little, AC/DC lick, And Paul said, you know, much simpler to play, far less flashy, but everybody's nodding their head or tapping their foot, because it's one thing to have that technical virtuosity, that theory craft, but it's another gift entirely to get just a few notes together in a sequence that are so catchy, grab your attention, get you wanting to move, get you wanting to, you know, enjoy that music. And a lot of people put AC/DC down because they are not technical, they're not as flashy as other guys. But they were smarter than that, in my opinion. They realised that, you know, taking the blues and turning it up to 11, you know, taking Chuck Berry and just cranking the amp up, which is kind of the way they started out, and you know, it works. You know, there's an awful lot of people who bought an awful lot of their albums, and, you know, 30, 40 years on, they're still playing their music. You know, come on, they're doing something right there, aren't they? You know, every one of their albums I think is fantastic, but then I'm a huge fan. But what they do, I like. You know, I like that whole approach of everything comes from the blues. You know, certainly in modern guitar, in my opinion. Yes, you've got classical. Yes, you've got jazz. I think they're very, very different spheres, not just in the sound, but also the approach, the technique, the theory. And, you know, they are completely different, in my opinion, genres. And, you know, for any guitarist to try and master any two of those three, blues, jazz, classical, I think is a journey that is almost unsurmountable, unachievable. There's too much to learn. You can't learn everything. You can't master everything. There aren't enough hours in the day in one person's lifetime. I think there are certainly several people out there who've got more knowledge, more ability than others, because they've put so much time into it, so much effort into it, and, you know, they've got that natural ability to absorb that information and put it into skills. But cool, I'm really not talking about this album very well, am I? Vibrato. Yeah. The other thing I like about Paul is he's not abashed to put his opinions over, which, you know, do leak through in his album quite a little bit. He's gone on record several times with his opinions of the music industry, and people in general, you know, the audience. They're just the way they've so easily adopted being spoon-fed by the corporate agencies out there. You know, they're not a business, they're running a business, they're trying to make money, they've come up with some very clever business strategies on how to do that with the reality TV. You know, you will watch it, you phone in, they make their money from the phone in, and so people are voting, so they feel like they're involved. But the company is not having to invest any money in developing an artist. The money is actually coming from developing the artist. They're making a profit out of trying to develop artists. And that was something that never really happened, probably up until the last 5-10 years in the music industry. And the music industry has changed a lot, it really has. Really not talking about this album very well, I am sorry, I do rant, but here we go. So yeah, there's a song on here, Atmosphere on the Moon, which is a great song, and the vocals in it really get across Paul's opinions of how, you know, auto-tune why do we have to listen to that? It's awful. It ruins things. It really does. You know, it's music for the new millennium. And you know, he likens the whole idea of having to listen to that corporate, formulaic, auto-tuned, you know, music that they're concocting through television reality shows. And my personal take on it is I'm sick of people who are glory hunters, fame hunters, rather than musicians. And I know Paul has had a similar opinion. You know, that all these people who are going on these reality shows, well, the majority of them, let's be fair, the majority of them are vocalists, and they are people who are singing other people's tunes, and they want to be famous, and they want to get a record deal, and they want to make an album. Maybe, you know, that's kind of roughly what most of them are hoping to get out of it. Or just get on TV. Whoopee. Personally, I'd much rather develop the ability to play, the ability to write my own original material. I think that's the true test of any musician. You know, it's one thing to copy other people. Imitation is a form of flattery, but is it a form of artistic achievement? Probably not. I mean, you know, a good cover done well with just a little bit of your own influence put into it, so that it's not an absolute replica, is great. And that's where the skill comes in. That's where the originality comes in. That's where the musical ability comes in, to take something and put yourself into it. Your field, your ability, and Paul does that very well with the last track on this album, Go Down, cover of AC/DC song. So that's another great one. There's quite a theme to this as well. It's not just the vibrato. One of the other themes that kind of ran through me is Paul likes to go places. It's like a journey. You know, his musical experience takes you on a journey. You know, so the first track is putting his enemies in jail. I'm not quite sure where he got the idea from that from. He must have, you know, somebody that he's really got under his skin, and yeah, he'd just like to see them in jail. I think we can all relate to that a little bit. And then there's another track on there called Bivalve Blues, which he talks about going to the bottom of the ocean, an atmosphere on the moon. And then there's another song, Roundabout, which, you know, I know British people will get the reference to. You know, going round a roundabout can be an endless journey that never ends. It's not quite so relevant in other countries, because I don't think they have as many roundabouts. And certainly, you know, different languages, different names. So, you know, Paul's got a very good album here. I quite like listening to this in the car, turning it up, and I just as equally love listening to it at home, you know, just chilling out. But then I'm a big fan of Paul, and have been since, you know, his early days with Mr. Big 25 years ago. So if you like Paul Gilbert, you'll like this. If you like rock guitar, you'll like this. If you like shred guitarist, you'll also love this, because there's elements of that in there. It doesn't swamp it, it doesn't dominate it. The dominating thing here is vibrato. So you've got that sort of classical, not classical, but classic, revved up, dirty guitar. You know, very, very good quality humbucker for a nice solid amp with a bit of fuzz, a bit of overdrive. and pushed out very, very well on the album recording. It's mixed very well. It's nicely balanced. The guitar is dominant, as you would expect, because the named artist is the guitarist. But the rest of the balance of the drums, the bass, and everything else is nicely balanced there, so that it never feels like it's being drowned out, but it never feels like it's overbearing and drowning Paul out. And I tend to pick up on things like that. I like my music to be mixed well, so that at the right moments in the song, what should be dominant, what you should be focusing on, is standing out. So, guitarist having a solo or having that intro lick, I find an awful lot of production these days still has every other instrument balanced to be on an equal footing with the instrument that's supposed to be sort of introducing you to the song and where it's going. And that can happen with vocalists as well, getting that balanced where you don't get a guitar cutting through the vocals or a vocalist cutting through the guitar. And the bass and drums can very often drown each other out, in that they're there but you can't pick them out. And it's an art that you need a very, very good engineer to get that balance just right, in that you can hear everything if you choose to pick and listen, so that you can go, yeah, they're there, they're playing well, they've got that, whatever it is they're trying to put on going on, and that's very balanced in here. But Paul's a fantastic musician. He's worked with an awful lot of great musicians. He's taught an awful lot of students for a great many years, and has a great understanding of music, recording, and how to work with other people. So I like this album. Just looking at this, yeah, I think this one came from Japan. I keep getting these things from strange places. There's always been a bit of a break between me doing a few of these videos. I had to wait for some stuff to come from Japan, Canada, California, and some other places, and it took a little while for someone to turn up, and then I went on holiday, and yeah, everything got kind of foo-bar. So, Paul Gilbert, buy it. Don't rip it off the internet. Buy it. It's a brilliant album. Support artists, because guys like this can only keep making good stuff, playing, teaching, passing on the legacy of their fantastic ability, if we keep supporting them. And music has got cheaper. The record companies have wised up that they can't charge us 16 quid for an album anymore, which was ridiculous. Maybe artists aren't getting as much money, but there are some people out there who are making silly amounts of money, taking their cut, their percentage, and they didn't really need it. They didn't really work for it. Agents, God please. Publicists, who needs them? As Rob Chapman said recently, these days one of the core skills you need is to be a fantastic video editor. You must have that as your core skill. I don't yet. I'm working on it. Because the whole concept of taking music out on the road in the back of a van with a couple of 100-watt cabs and a head, 100-watt head and a couple of cabs, and going to some barn or some auditorium or hall or whatever, and trying to make a big enough sound for people to hear, is gone, because the audiences aren't there anymore. Or you don't need that kind of kit, because pretty much everywhere that you would go to play now has got a PA system of some sort. So a 30-watt amp with a mic to a PA system will do the job. And Paul's old school. Paul's from the crowd that, you know, played in bars, played gigs, got his name known, got the band liked, got our, you know, probably our support slot on a major tour, got themselves the exposure, got themselves a record deal, and then, hey, you know, you get the airplay in the States, great. That's the way it still kind of works in the States. But we are changing that. We have already changed that. Just by watching this video, by having a computer to watch these videos, being aware that YouTube exists, has changed all of that. The forum for musicians to get exposure now is not by playing lots of gigs on a Friday night, Saturday night, and maybe, you know, student night at the student union, or, you know, student night in a local pub. It's doing that probably once a week and making your own YouTube channel, getting yourself out there in the digital world, for people to access whenever they want, rather than on a Friday night. Paul still has the capacity to fill auditoriums and play quality gigs, so he does. I hope to be going and seeing him sometime in the next year, which would be fantastic. But yeah, back to this album. It's a great album. Get out there and buy it. I have. And I will see you in the next video. And in the next one, I'm going to be talking about one of my other favourite guitar players, who's perhaps well known to people who watch these videos, but not to the general world. And that's Mr. Andy Timmons and his band. So, catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.